Well, I hope you enjoyed that discussion of club fitting and its importance. If you come away from nothing else in this discussion at this level, I want you to remember that it's time to start playing with some equipment that really fits you so you can use your most natural swing. Now, here's a situation that you may find yourself in out on the golf course, and that is having to keep the ball low under a tree. Everybody's got to be proficient at this shot because players of all levels are going to miss some fairways, and you're going to be faced with this shot. Now, the secret to this shot is de-lofting the club. De-lofting the club means you're taking the club and giving it less loft, so the face is straighter up and down. That's going to drive it a little more forward. So we're going to change our swing just a little bit to create that type of impact. You can almost think of it like a big chip shot, if you will. We're going to play the ball back in the stance a little bit. The handle is going to be forward, and that's going to de-loft the club for us. So let's take a look at it. I want to have this club hit with a real straight face, if you will. So I've got a 6-iron here. My shot's about 150 yards. This tree is about 30 or 40 feet in front of me, and I've got to have it no more than about 15 feet in the air at that point when it crosses under the tree. So the stance is going to be a little on the narrow side with the ball back in the stance. Now, as you do this and you lean the club forward, it's common for someone to lean the club forward and have the club face open. So you want to keep it square. It's going to look almost closed to you when you do that, leaning the handle forward, the ball back in the stance. Now, when it comes to the swing, as I say, you're going to feel like a big chip shot where it really pinches into the ground. The secret is in the motion is to get a sensation that the handle is dragging the rest of the club into impact just a little more than normal. Again, watch out for the club face. If you drag the handle a lot and leave the face open, it's going to go out to the right. So go ahead and drag that club face in there, letting it get square, but leading it with the handle. You'll also notice as I'm doing this, I am making some body movement, and that's going to help me to de-loft it also. Clearly, if I were to stay back here, that's going to pop it right up into the air. So it's going to go ahead and lean forward like that, driving into it, handle getting dragged into the impact area, which drags the club head and de-lofts the club. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Well, that's about all I could hope for on this shot. Now, you do have to watch out for one element when you're playing the knockdown shot like this under a tree, and that is the loft of the club. It does de-loft the club like crazy, and that's what we want. Now, if you try to get too greedy and try to do this with a 3-iron or a 4-iron, in the rough, sometimes it won't get airborne enough. It'll hit the grass on its exit and kill the shot. This can happen to even the best players. A friend of mine, Steve Pate, playing this shot in the last tournament victory he had to make bogey or less to close the deal and win the tournament. Well, he drove it in the rough on the last hole, a par 5, and he went ahead and hit a 5-iron to try to get it up the fairway as far as he could. Well, he did what I just talked about, where he used too straight-faced the club for how deep the rough was, caught the rough, moved it only about 10 feet. So now all of a sudden he had to play a good hole to make that bogey, and he did and won the tournament, but he made it a lot harder on himself. I think if he had it to do over again, he'd choose a 9-iron or a wedge every time. So the de-lofted shot here, punching it under a tree, it is going to take some practice, as always, and to try to get a feel for how low you can make it go and what clubs you might need. So take some practice with this one. It's a good one. Well, now I've got the opposite situation where I've got to hoist this ball up over the tree. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why don't you just go under the tree like you did a minute ago? Well, playing a long, low shot with a lake in the way like that probably isn't a very good idea. A minute ago, I was much closer to that lake, so it would go right over it. But now it's become much more of a problem, so I really do need to go up and over the tree. Now, luckily, the changes you need to make on this shot are all exactly the opposite of what we just did a minute ago. It makes it really easy to remember. Instead of the ball back in your stance, we're going to move the ball forward in the stance. So we're going to have the ball up toward the left foot just a little bit more instead of back in the stance. We're also going to have the weight, instead of leaning to the left, centered or maybe even a little bit to the right. The club shaft, instead of leaning forward, straight up and down, or if anything, leaning a little bit to the right. Now when you do this, we're going to keep the club face looking to where we want to go, as always. Now this type of stance is going to create a situation where the club skims the ground just a little bit more than normal. It won't hit down quite so much. Because of that, we need a good lie to play this shot. If the ball's sitting down in the grass, that skimming impact is not going to get to it clean. So we're going to go ahead and look for a good lie. If you don't have a good lie, don't try and go over a tree like this. Now when it comes to the hitting motion, you're going to feel a little bit more handsy, if you will, where you're going to feel your wrists real soft, feeling the club head pass your hands just a little bit more. Now I don't want you to do this with a push of the hands back here where you're using the little muscles to sling the club forward. I just want you to get kind of a light sensation of sort of letting the club pass on by. So very light in your hands. The ball's going to be forward in your stance with the handle leaned back. I've got my weight a little bit back, and let's go ahead and give it a go. Now learning when to take your lumps in this game is really important. I've got a shot here with a 9-iron and I'm probably about 160 or 70 yards. No way to get there, but I want to make sure I'm able to clear that tree. I don't want to cut those lines too fine. Again, knowing when to take your lumps in this game is very, very important. So again, I don't want to get too greedy in a situation like this. So there's the technique, a little handsy, ball a little forward in the stance, leaned a little back to the right, and that ball's going to go straight up. Well, now I've got one for you. I'm right in between. I know how to do both of them, but do I go under or do I go over? Golf is full of big decisions, and this is a big one for my score. Now, how do I choose which one I'm going to do? Well, here's the way I want you to look at it. The reason that people want to go over the tree usually is that it gives them a feeling of control because that ball is going to come over and stop where it lands. If you're coming in low, it's going to be running like crazy, so it may stop short of the green, it may end up perfectly, and of course it may go over the back of the green. So that gives a feeling of lack of control. So that's why people too often are encouraged to try to go over. Well, I don't want you to go over that tree unless you're about 90% sure you can carry over it. I want you to be very comfortable that you can clear that tree with no problem. Why? Because if you try it and you hit that tree, it's going to ping pong right around and come right back down. So you may only advance that ball 20 or 30 yards. Now you're going to need a miracle to make a par from there. When it comes to going low, that ball is going to be somewhere up near the green, maybe 20 yards short of the green, maybe on the putting surface, but you're going to be somewhere up near the green so that you can let your short game take over. So if you're not really just about positive you can get it over that tree with no problem, go ahead and go under. It's a much safer decision and much better for your score. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. That's how I want to do that work on the short game, is so that I can get really good at those scoring shots, takes the pressure off of these types of situations. Well, I hope you enjoyed our time together today. I know I did. You know, golfers at this handicap level, with a little bit of extra knowledge and some hard practice, can really make some great strides. So I would urge you to go ahead and get a club in your hands, put some practice into it, and you'll find yourself improving in no time. Make sure to visit our website at golflevels.com. I'm Roger Gunn, and I'll look forward to seeing you at the next level.